nicer one. Tod of Todsstuff here, just talking about shields a little bit today. So if we start, this is the early stages of the Viking shield. Obviously, we've got a little way to go. So this one has been planked in poplar. Now, the Viking shields, if we look at the Gokstad finds, we can see that they're really only about 9, 10, 11 millimetres thick at the central boss here. And they taper down to maybe 5 or 6 millimetres at the edge. So actually, we'll just talk about the wood itself. This one is done in poplar. Okay, often in the Viking sagas it was lindenwood, lime wood, but they actually have very, very similar properties. So it's a very light wood, and it's actually quite tough as well. So what I mean by that is, if you look at this piece of poplar here, you see I can snap it, but actually it wants to tear. It's really a very resilient wood, and that makes it great for shields, simply because it's lightweight, which is what you want. You need to be able to carry it for a long time. You need to be able to move it around quickly. So that's obviously a great benefit. If you made this out of, I don't know, 20 mil, 3/4 inch thick oak, yes, it's going to stop anything that's going to go at you, but equally you're not going to be able to move it. So like any other kind of armour, it's got to have that flexibility of one benefit against another benefit. Now, if you are well trained, and presumably these people were, then you're not going to be taking the blows directly on. Of course, that's never going to stop a battle axe or a sword cut down. It's always going to be about deflection. It's always going to be about moving the force somewhere else. Now, what is particularly notable about this shield is it's warped. It's completely warped. Now, the reason for that is actually when you lay a facing onto it, again in the Viking sagas it was cowhide very often, but when you lay a facing onto it, you lay it on wet. And you have to do that because otherwise the glue, it just immediately soaks up the moisture out of the animal glue that you're using, and you just don't get a good adherence. So you've got to get the wood and the facing a little bit wet before you put the glue on. Of course, if it gets wet, it's taking up the water, so when it dries, it shrinks, and it creates that. So actually, I didn't get a backing onto the shield fast enough. You really need to do both sides at the same time, otherwise you get this warpage. I'll be able to get it out. But nonetheless, for the moment, it sits there as a good example of why you need to face a shield inside and out. And the reason you do face them is it gives it an awful lot more strength. Although we saw from the wood there that it's really fibrous and tough, actually, the fabric, it's a bit like fiberglass. It allows the benefits, in the case of fiberglass, of the resin to hold it together and the glass to give it the strength. This is, you've got the wood for the resilience, and the cloth just holds it all in one place. So even if you get local cuts and splits, the cloth or the hide holds it all together. Now if we move on now, we've got a kite shield here. This one has been edged in rawhide. Now, sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't, as far as I can tell. Now, what we have to note is there are, unlike the Gokstad shield, there are no kite shields in existence that we know of. There is one which has been slightly cut down, I forget the location at the moment. One that's been slightly cut down, perhaps, to become a later flat top kite shield. But of the round topped, there are none. And none that we can actually know. Now, if you look at the manuscript evidence and the paintings, you'll often see a painted rim around the outside, often with little studs that look like nail heads. Maybe that was a painting style. Maybe they did actually line them with a rawhide or a leather edging. My gut feeling is that they probably did, because it gives you an awful lot of benefit. The downside, this shield weighs around about 5 kilos, but I'll come back to that in a moment. The downside is it will add a kilo or a kilo and a bit onto the weight, so a couple of pounds onto the weight of rawhide and nails. That's the downside. The upside is it gives you a lot more toughness, a lot more resilience on the edge here. Now, this one, I've actually constructed out of plywood. Now, the reason is, it's cheaper for customers, for one thing. And once you face it inside and out, you can't see the difference. So this one has been faced with linen canvas, and then with gesso, which is a chalk and a glue mixture. And then it can be painted at some other point in the future. But it's not been done beautifully, but they just weren't, as far as we can tell. It's roughly filled, nice good surface for painting. Like I said, this one weighs about 5 kilos. It would be a smidge lighter were it to be in proper boards, but not a great deal. Now the strapping on the back, you've got a gauge strap, which is adjustable, goes around your neck obviously. That's just been done with holes and cord. And then you've got 2 sets of arm straps and a wool-stuffed linen pad here, being quilted. So this one here needs to be adjustable here, because I found that on this short length, different people's arms do make a difference. So you can get it in, nice and tight. When you're couched down, it gives you incredible protection, really, from just above the shoulder all the way to just above the foot. So, you know, it's a fantastic shield, very different to the Viking shields in that sense. But also they were great cavalry people, so it offers you great protection down the left-hand side when you're on a horse. Now I've found here that actually whatever size arm you've got, really, over that distance, you don't need to make this one adjustable. Even just a little bit of water to stretch it out if you need to, and you'll be fine. So I don't put an adjuster on the bottom one here. Again, we simply don't know what they did. They may have been buckled for all we know, don't know. Faced with an iron boss on the front here. This one's been hand raised by Jason at Wheel & Forge. Excellent products. And then everything put together with hand forged nails. Now, that one I've left unpainted, customer's requirement. They would have had something on them, obviously. This one now, around about 1300, we're now getting into the realms of heraldry a bit. So again, this is customer's requirement on the heraldry. I don't actually know whose it is or what it means. I think these are ermine, someone will tell me. By this point, the armour obviously has become much better. And the shields are being relied on less than they were at this point with the kite shields. So actually that's one of the reasons they've become a little bit smaller. This one I've edged with rawhide again. It was just a choice, but some were, some weren't. You're relying less on the shield to take the blows now, and you're allowing some of the armour to take some of it. It's a less critical piece of kit. It's still an integral piece of kit, but less critical. Often the curvature on shields at this period was very severe. This one I've kept it as a fairly shallow one. The back, the harnessing, I've remained the same. But this time I've just jazzed the shields, the straps up a little bit, so they've been dyed red and so on. So it just looks a little nicer. Now, also what can be said about this one is this has been planked. So this comes through at about 14, 15 millimeters thick, something like that. And again, it's linen and gesso covered on the front, and then it's just been painted on the back, raw boards. Now, we've just moved to a completely different kind of shield here. I've just included this simply because I've got it here at the moment. Now, this is a jousting shield, 15th century jousting shield. Now, it's formed traditionally from strips of wood which create effectively a carrier and a form on the back. But that is not the main talking point of the shield. Now, this one is owned by a jouster who, he jousts for real. So when I say for real, I mean ash lances, steel heads, armour, can get killed for real. Now what is very important here is that when the lance strikes the shield, it can't skid off. So it can't skid down into his cantle, up under his neck or anything else. The lance is retained effectively and therefore controlled to an extent by the rider. So you can see the bite marks for the lances here. But what that means is you want the lance to bite. Now, to achieve that, this is completely tiled in the end grain bits of wood. So just like a butcher's block, it will cut better if it's made as end grain wood, which they all are. It's the same here. It's made of tiny little tiles, about 20-25 millimeters square, all of the end grain of ash and elm. So when the lance strikes, it digs in. So a very different shield kind of construction. Again, weight is not an issue, so this is not that much lighter than the 14th century shield that I showed you before, but that's because it's very dense. The wood is much denser. There's a lot of glue material between the woods holding the tiles together, and it's actually quite thick. It's about 22 mil thick. So it's really quite a weighty little beast, but not so important because of the way you're sitting on the horse and so on, and it's actually supported by your riding arm here. So there you are, a little bit about shields. Thank you very much.